engraved titanium. And so this is my first effort at it. You know, I've seen other people do it, and it's just always frightened me for some reason. And it did surprisingly well. I was able to engrave directly onto the sheet of titanium, and I turned it into a pendant that I then mounted in a sterling setting. Not do any interlocking scrolls or anything like that. We'll just try to cut a couple of nice, simple, botanical fantasies here. That scroll is not good. This needs to cut this way. I do my best freehanding these, and then I wind up correcting a little bit as I cut, because it's a matter of scale. There we go. There's nothing there. Okay. Like that. There we go. That looks pretty good. Alrighty, so first, let's cut the main scrolls. Let's see, just a little bit. Okay, let's start here. I may try to dome this piece a little bit. I should have left a little bit more on the margins, but yeah, I may try to dome it a little bit, and then I'll put an electric blue anodization. There's a little break here because it's sliding out of my tabs of plastic there, so I'm going to take a moment, heat this up, put a couple tabs of plastic on the ends to stabilize it, and take a little coffee break. Let's do this one. try these. Because the texture, when you anodize, I've noticed the texture really makes a tremendous difference, probably because of the way the light is bouncing off the underlying metallic surface and then interacting with the light that's bouncing off of the clear oxide. Okay, so let's try that. I wasn't thrilled with the stippling, so I'm going to put a few of these, I'm going to do a little bit of these circles in the background, and just to give it some texture, just to set the background off from the rest of it. It's not as fine as ready for shading. Okay, so I cut all those outlines using what's called a 90-degree graver, which gives me a nice sharp line. You have to be a little careful because they tend to dig in. I'm gonna now start shading, and I just kind of shade randomly. I'm not that great at it. But I'm going to just start cutting lines that I think reveal a bit of three-dimensionality, and we'll see how that goes. For that, I'm going to use what's called a 105 graver. I like a 105 or a 116 for shading because it's a flatter angle, so you get a much more immediate widening of the line if you just change the angle of your cut a little bit. So let's see how this goes. Let's start here and get light. So I will sit this aside for just a few minutes and come back and look at it and make sure that it looks attractive to my eye. And if it does, then the next step will be that I might try to dome it a little bit, and then I'll use the saw to cut it out. And we'll see if that looks like a nice element. Then we'll anodize it and see if it looks like it's worth setting in silver. With this so far is you definitely do not want to use your FSS die to try and cut this titanium. It really doesn't matter how thin it is, it's just too hard, and unless I'm told otherwise, I just don't want to do that, because I think I goobered up my test run, and so I'm not willing to do that. Now that said, I've done some doming of these pieces, and that has worked okay. So I'm going to try, even though this has very little edge on it, I'm going to try and give this a little dome that matches the profile of that. Okay, so I've got the piece in there, and now we'll put it on a piece of 1/8 inch thick urethane, so it's not going to be crazy, and we'll put that in the press. We can, get a doming on this. Alrighty, let's see what we did. Yeah, a little bit, just a titch. That might be okay though. I'm going to turn it and just hit it one more time. And let's see how that worked. I don't want a lot. I just thought maybe a small three-dimensional appearance might be kind of interesting. Yeah, that did okay. Alrighty, so if I left, when I did a test run and I left more of a edge on it, and it gave me a bigger dome. But this actually turned out pretty nicely. So I think what I'm going to do is clean this up, anodize it before I cut it with the saw. That gives me this nice edge to grab onto, and I mean it's a better way to have a low resistance connection. Otherwise you got to hold it like in a basket, you know, and that's just a little more of a problem. But that little bit of dome seems to have done a nice job. That looks pretty good. Right, so the blue I'm hoping for is a low voltage blue. So I'm going to try it without etching. I don't have a lot of experience with titanium, and I want to just kind of see, because I can always etch it off later if I don't like it. But the low voltage colors I'd read can work with titanium without etching. So I'm going to try it first and see what I do. And if I don't like it, I'll then etch it. So I've got this set to a constant voltage of 23. So let's see if we can etch this or anodize this. It goes to 23 and let it drop to very little. Let's see what happened. Oh ho ho. Yeah, I think I like it. So we're just going to go with it. That looks really, really sharp. Yeah, when that dries, it'll look even better. Let's, because the nature of these refractive oxide layers is such that, oh yeah, oh man, that is pretty sharp. I like that look. The as I was hoping, the sharp engraved lines where they smooth the metal give a very nice appearance. So yeah, we'll now cut that out with our saw. Well, this is such a nice smooth curve, you could probably save yourself some time and just use shears, but I kind of want to just take this a little more slowly because I don't want to goober up or do anything to damage this oxide layer. So I'm going to carefully hold it and simply use my magic saw. Let's see. Okay, so as I look at this, I like it a lot actually, so I may just go with it. We'll see. Or I may clean it and just give it one more dunk in the oxidation. That'll also help me get the edges. Okay, so next step I'm going to use okay. Okie dokie, all I did was roll a piece of silver to 18 gauge, and then I roller printed a texture, just a nice botanical stylized texture on it. And I'm going to, rather than cut it to exactly the same dimension of the titanium cabochon, I'm going to cut it in a larger oval, and that'll give me just a little bit more character to play with. So I'll line this up in my handy dandy stamping system. We'll put that there, lower this, put a spacer on it. Make sure that's not binding. Yeah. Okay, let's cut that and see if we get a nice looking backing for our pendant. Yeah, okay. Okay, that looks okay. Let's just give that a little tap. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. I got one little flaw there. I'll have to see where that comes on the piece, and I may be just remaking it. We'll see. So the next steps are pretty standard fabrication. I laid out the position that I want my prongs to be in, and put little divots in them, and now I'm going to be using 16 gauge wire for little tiny prongs that are going to go all the way through. Sorry about the bandage, but I had a boo-boo. Okay, so what I'll do first is drill holes, and I'll aim for about 1 millimeter hole since I'm using 16 gauge wire back there. And the reason for that is so that the solder has more area to flow into, and it helps neaten it up, and that way even when I grind it down from the back it's a little easier. Ball it, or if they're tight like this, I sometimes get away with just squeezing it to flare it a little bit so that it holds, and then put little dollops of solder on each of those. Okay, all I've done is put some little wires through there and flux the openings. Now I'm just going to place some little hard solder pallions just adjacent to each of these. The hope being, of course, that go where I intend it. Sure, I had good adhesion, so let's pull this off, and that goes in the pickle pot, and then we'll trim the prongs. This got a minimum time in the pickle. I'll be doing a little bit more, but I want to clean up the back of the prongs first. And to start that, you can, you file them or sand them, whatever you need. I'm going to use a burr here and just knock down the worst of it. Approximately the right length of those. So we'll just place our element in there. Let me eyeball it, make sure. Yeah, I'm just going to cut them at an angle about 2 millimeters long. That gives me more than enough to push over without. I really don't like the look of prongs that go too far over either a stone or a cabochon or an element like this. So now I'm just going to use, you can use your saw, but it's actually can be quite handy just to nip these. File the outside edge, polish this with wheels, and then I'll put a bail on it and make it go for a run in the tumbler before we set our titanium cabochon. Alrighty, so now I'm going to set this thing if I can, hopefully without screwing everything up. So I put a little piece of painter's tape on it just to help me prevent myself from the very, very worst of possible slips. Okay, so first we'll put this up against there and just try to gently push a prong over. Okay, and then like most things, let's go to the opposite side and we'll push that over. Now let's do this one. There we go. And finally this one. Let's make sure that's okay. Yep. Okay, let's take the tape off. Let's see what that's looking like. Oh, yeah, that actually looks pretty darn good. Okay, so what let's do, use a bezel pusher to just press these straight down. I actually think that turned out a lot nicer than even I had thought it might.